Yes, we should be live right now. I have to look all the way over there to see what's on the screen. Super good. What? I always say super good. Always start with super good. Hello. Wherever you're joining from, go ahead and say hi. If you want. If I know you, I'll definitely say hi. And even if I don't know you, I'll also say hi. So, what I thought we'd do this week in my stream, hey Sean, is I would recreate one of the symbols used in one of my LinkedIn courses. Okay, because this one makes an interesting object to create. Okay, and it has a few different effects to it, and you'll see what those things are. So I'm going to do it as closely as I can in the time allowed, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay, but let's go ahead and get stuck in to doing that, and then you're going to see some other cool techniques as we go along, and I'll have to keep referring to that as well. In fact, what I could do, I guess, is I could go ahead and drop that into a separate window. Mind you, if I need to do that, I can do that later on. Right, so that one's super tiny down there, just as a piece of reference. We'll keep that there, and I'm going to start out. In fact, let me draw it in the same neighbourhood, because that way I can use some of the same sizes here. So I'm going to start out actually with a rectangle, like so, and because I targeted it earlier, then I've got exactly that, and I'm going to go ahead and fully round those corners. Groovy stuff. Then I'm going to split this up a little bit, so that should expand the shape automatically. So if I get my pen tool here and target the top and bottom of that, now it's drawing an inference from the wrong kind of object there, which is a bit of a shame. So what I might have to do is just move that out of the way just for a second. Hey Uma, good to see you. Did you attend Max virtually last week? Did you have fun if you did? I hope so. I'm just going to get my direct selection tool there, and then in the properties panel I'm just going to click here to split the paths at those points. Okay, so what I could do now, if it's done it, it doesn't appear to have split it, so I'll go ahead and tap C and get the scissors, and I'll cut it manually like that. I don't know why that does that sometimes. There you go, now it's perfectly split. So that's really good. You were mostly lurking, were you? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to tap R on my keyboard here to get the rotate tool. Then I'm going to come along and option click just there. The last thing I rotated was by 90 degrees. So I don't want this to be quite that far. 2 degrees I think works pretty well. So I'm just going to say OK with that one. Then I'm going to select this one, get the rotate tool just here, option key down, and this one I want to just hit the left arrow on my keyboard, drop in a minus there and rotate that around like so. There we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so now I've got those two things together. I don't think that's quite the same size as those wings, you know. Oh, more or less. But anyway, in any event, that's not the important bit here. I'm just going to grab this one, and then I'm just going to nudge that over a little bit. Just there like so. Something like that. It's good, just completely eyeballing it. Then select both of those things, Command J, twice, and then I've got that. Now that's interesting that that's taken on. I'm going to just undo that and see what exactly is going on there, because that shouldn't give me a non-rectangular box or a rectangular aligned box. Let's try that a different way. Let's get the pen tool here and join those two things together. Do the same at the bottom. Well, that's mighty weird. Let's try and reset that bounding box. There we go. Groovy. That works all right. Then I need a bit of an ellipse just here. So again, just eyeballing from the bottom there. Something, I think, like that. We're pretty good. That'll work. Select both of those things, make that the key object, align to center. and then just push this up into that. This is all completely eyeballed here, by the way, just at the moment, and then just knock that out from there. Good, that's working pretty well so far. I think I will actually just move over to the side now so I get the right inferences. I think what I'm also going to do is just get the pen tool here and just drop one single anchor point and hit escape. And I'm going to go to my appearance panel, and with this fill that it already has, I was going to say convert to shape, and I'll choose an ellipse. I don't need it to be quite that big, so I'll just dial that to about 3, something like that in both sides. There we go, and hit OK. So now I've got that anchor point just there. I'm just going to choose a colour that I'm not going to use today. There we go. And then grab both of those things. Click on the wings here to make them key objects and choose align to center. That means now I have a definite reference point there that I can use at the top, and I can't miss it. In fact, that perhaps is a bit too big. So I'm just going to dial that down just a little bit more, maybe make it 1 millimeter in both directions. Let's go 2. And go up to that one, 2. There we go. That's better. That's much more manageable. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got the wings, can start to work on the fuselage there, or that wing anyway. Should really have 2, should be able to see 2, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so for this one, I think I'm going to start out with a rectangle. So I'm going to go from the center just about here, option key down. I'm quite happy to go with that color just for the minute. Send that to the back. And then I'm going to pull that down to be about the length I want it to be. Something in that region there. I just need to add 2 points here. So I guess round about here is good. And grab that one. I'm then going to get the anchor point tool, the direct selection tool. Click one and then the other, and then choose align top. So they're now aligned. Select the ones down at the bottom, tap S for the scale tool, and pull that in like so, something like that. So I'm getting that fuselage shape just there. I think that's pretty good for now. Okay, excellent. I might also want to just round this. So if I just get the direct selection tool again and select just the points at the bottom, just to round that off, that will look nicer, I think, from there. What do I need it for? What do you mean, Emma? Sorry. What do I need it for? Do you mean the point at the top here? This particular point at the top? If you mean that, it's so I've got something. Right. Okay. Yeah. It's not an ellipse. It is a single anchor point just there that has an ellipse appearance added to it. So the advantage there is if I drew something and I wanted it to be aligned to this body here, I could do that with certainty, yeah, by selecting both of those things, then clicking on the anchor point, okay, to make it a key object, right, and then I should be able to go ahead and do that. That's actually making that tricky to do, but anyway, I've got something that I can align to, okay, at the top just there. That should be working and making me a key object right now. There we go. Anyway, that's what it's there for. So I've got something that I can align to, is the whole purpose of that. All right. Anyway, right, I do it actually with a lot of my work. I do that. Let's just change the color of this. We'll deal with color in a little bit. Okay, but for now, we're just going to bring that down to here, align it on the side, bring that out, let the smart guides do their work. Here, if I grab the corner, see, it's not giving me a smart guide there, and it should. That's a worry. But I'm just going to go to that edge. So when the cursor like this, if I take the I-beam part of the cursor, can you see how it snaps to that side? And that's been a constant problem for the Illustrator team, snapping. Tricky business. So here I'm going to select the top 2 points. Again, scale tool to bring these in. Just a bit at the top here. And direct selection tool just to round those off. Just a little bit. Give them a bit of a bevel. Then polygon tool. And getting that central alignment just there anyway. Whoops, that didn't trigger just then. There we are, central line now. And holding down shift to lock that in. Of course I have too many sides just there, so I'll use the widget here on the side to just change that down to a triangle. Like that. And then let's round all of those corners off. Actually, let's not do that first. Let's grab these two here. And again with the scale tool to bring those in. And I might actually get that one at the top there and bring that down, just using the arrow keys there to nudge that in. Then I can select all 3 and just round those off a tiny bit. Like that. And give that a colour. Let's make that nice and bright red at the front. What are you calling yourself this week, Tim? Oh dear. So Colbeard, have you tried enabling the retro escabulator together with the semi-boiled slot frame? What are you like? You are so funny. Yeah, the retro encabulator together with the semi-boloid slot frames. That way, side fumbling can effectively be prevented through the girdle spring might end up in the grammatus. So good. So good. Sir Quitboard. But, anyway, moving on. See, that's not quite big enough. I'm just going to separate that out just a tiny bit, a little wee bit just there, and get my option key down and just scale that out a little bit. There we go. Something like that. A little bit of eyeballing gone on just there. This piece here, I can actually make that the colour I want now, which is going to be that kind of grey. Just there. That's good. Then we can start to work on the tail fin just here. So we can do that. Now that's an odd shape, that is. I mean, it's correct, but it's an odd shape. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start again with a rectangle for that. I'm going to duplicate this across on both sides. Here, I'm going to get this and bend that in. Then I'm going to get these 2 points and take those out. That should break those corners to some degree. That's sort of working, but it's upside down. Okay, that's fine. And then this one here, this point at the bottom right, that can go in a way like so. There's normally a little clip on that point there. That looks pretty good. That's sort of right. You can bring it in just a tiny bit and squish it down a little bit like that. There we go. That will work. Send that to the back. Could have used my drawing modes there, actually, to be fair. Option key down. So switching to the reflector, option key down, going for the top anchor point. Clicking there. Vertical is just fine. I want to copy, so hold down that Alt or Option key. Hit return. There's my copy. So good. Okay, so that's ready. We're going to deal more with colour in a little bit. We'll let this carry on just as it is for the time being. Now, not in the thing underneath here, this thing that I'm working from, but not in that set is something that's missing. So what I'm going to do is, I am actually going to switch to draw behind mode, Shift D. Then I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag that down a bit. Okay, so that's drawn. If I just change the colour temporarily, right, you can see how that has come down beneath that object. But of course, I probably almost definitely want it to be right at the very bottom of the stack. And then I'll also want that to be just a bit narrower, like so. So the idea is if you're looking at a biplane, you'd be able to see from the top down the lower wings, because they would be sort of underneath that, but slightly back from that. If you want to look at a biplane, go to an airplane museum and you'll see exactly what I mean. Okay, next up then in this, and like I say, we will deal with colour in a bit. This is going to be a job for another rectangle, so going for the middle, just here, holding down the Alt Option key, drawing that rectangle like so, and then rounding all four corners off of that. Doesn't really matter there at all how we're going to do that. So we'll drop a nice dark colour on there. Now I've got draw behind mode still on, so I'm just going to cycle through those until I'm in draw normal mode. But let me just undo that and bring that up to the front. There it is. Okay, good. And then we'll make that nice dark brown like that, and then just send that back 1 or 2 or 3 bits. There we are. Perfect. Let's go for the line here, and the line, I'm going to use that, but then I'm just going to double click on that here and do something like that. Is good, just to make that a bit bigger also. There we go. So that's vaguely cockpit-like on there. That's good. I do think this is a little bit long, you know. Yeah, it is. For that then, I'm just going to grab with the direct selection tool all of those points and just bring that up. Something like that is pretty good. Very good, very good. Okay, so these 2 bits here, which I'm actually going to join together here like so, and because they're done, I'll just add their colour to them. Now for some wheels at the front here, and a pilot shortly. Okay, so this is going to start off with an axle just here, and that's going to be, hey ho, another rectangle. My friend Kara would say that everything is shapes. She would be right. So something like that would be good. Okay, cool. Let's make that a bit narrower. In fact, I'm going to do 2 things here. I'm going to make this darker grey on the bottom. We've got plenty of people watching that aren't saying hi. What's the deal with that? What is your deal? I shall go with that. There we are. Perfect. And then I'm going to drag another one of those down. Zoom in on that a bit more. From the side handle in like that. And then just to give that a more interesting shape, I'm just going to merge those 2 things together. So for the shape builder then, drag those to get them together, and then just go ahead and work with some of these corners. So if I go for the these corners here, first of all, I'm just going to bring these in with the scale tool, like that. And then just to make this a bit more interesting, I'm going to get the direct selection tool here and then round those off. There we go. Something like that's good. I think that's way too wide though, so I'm just going to select those 2, hold down the shift key, select those 2, S for the scale tool, and just pull those in to something like that. That's good. Okay, great. Da 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 da. Sean saying hi again. Hi, Sean. Okay, next then, it's going to be another rectangle. Yeah. That like so, something like that is good. Darker, darker, darker. There we go, and zoom in on that until I get the widget. There we go, perfect. And then, now here's where, Umi, you said about that point earlier, I tuck it up there and make it a different colour on purpose out of the way. So here's where this thing shines, right? So if I select that thing there and I want to flip that over to the other side, now I could possibly use some of the geometry on the plane, but experience tells me that sometimes you may move bits of that, whereas this hasn't gone anywhere. Right, so what I'm going to do is tap O. I then go up to the anchor just there. There's only one, so it's not going to confuse it anywhere else. Alt or Option key down, click, and the Option key is still down, so I can just hit return, and then that's all done. There you go. That's what that is there for, and that's why it's not just a circle. It's why a single anchor point, because there's no. I'm not going to get anything wrong that way. I'm going to group those things together, send those to the back, and then just pull those down just a little bit. Something like that is good. In fact, if I even go like that, there we are. That's groovy. Okay, this can now change. Or can it change colour yet? No, it can't. Okay, we'll leave that where it is, just for the moment. So let's draw in next the pilot, which is really easy for this particular one. Simply put here, this is going to be an ellipse that represents our pilot today. There we go, or whatever. And I'm going to fill that with, hold down the, I'm going to tap I here for the eyedropper tool, click that. Now it's got the exact fill and stroke now. I just want it to be the other way around. In fact, I don't want it to have a stroke at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the fill, which is currently in focus in front. Slash key to remove that. You're not really noticing the difference because it's on top of something that's the same colour. But Shift X to swap those over. There we go. There's our pilot, like so. Then we need to make the fluttering scarf. Just here, like so. Couldn't be really any easier. But I'll make it more difficult just for giggles. I'm going to use the curvature pen tool. I'm going to click once and twice and drag that into place because I don't want to interfere with that. Double click at that point there. Shift X to swap the fill and stroke around. In fact, I could even double click on here and change this. Let's get that more into the range of yellow, orangey sort of colour. Something like that. That's good. Okay, now I'll come back out. I'm going to click down here and then just drag there, like so. Good. Escape to stop drawing. Scroll over the field there to change the shape, like that. There we go. And then outline that. I've assigned a shortcut to that in my keys. And bring that to the front. There we go. I suppose I could, just to make that slightly more interesting, I'm going to tap C to go to the scissors tool, long press, get the knife tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut across here like this. There we go. Sweet, that's a good job. Selection tool, get the cut section at the back, go to the color guide tool. Color guide tool, oh my god, I'm talking like a person who overuses the word tool, like a lot of people do these days. Okay, so I've got this object here. I don't know why that's not filling with that current color. Oh, I do now, because the fill didn't have focus. There we go. So now I've done that. Color guide panel and just choose something a bit darker. There we go. Perfect. That does exactly what I need it to do. Just there, just to add a little bit of interest to that. I could do the same thing with the scarf if I wanted to. So I could go ahead and get that knife tool and come into here and make this slightly more interesting by cutting a section of that around like so. Something like that. Might as well do it because that way it shows you, I guess. And go back to that shape, back to the color guide panel. Click on that to make it the target thing there. I could make this one lighter or darker. If there are never enough things here for me, I normally change this to about 8 or 10. And why can't they have that as a slider on the bottom? Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have a little slider here in the UI for that to change it, but you have to go to the panel menu Then you have to go to color guide options. So that's 2 clicks on there so far. Then you change the number of steps to 8. Yeah. Then you go OK. Yeah. So several clicks just to get to that one thing. Oh my God, I so want to be that product manager. I'd gone off the boil on that, but now I'm back on it. There we go. So now I've got that. That's slightly more interesting. It might be a good idea to logically group those things together. Like so. Okay, that's kind of nice. That works pretty well. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of extra building to do just to start to develop some dimension for this. So let's change the color of, and we'll keep that color as it is just for the minute. Okay, so I'm going to select the wings just here. I'm going to make an offset path using object path offset path, but I also attached a keyboard shortcut to that. And the question I want to know is, do you want my keyboard shortcuts? I'm quite happy to share them. If you want, let me know in the chat if you'd be keen to get hold of a set of my keyboard shortcuts. And you can, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do that and make an explanatory sheet available as well. Okay, so -1's kind of okay. I think that would work. I think that would work. Or do I want to go the other way? Yeah, I'm going to go out a little bit, like so. There we go, something like that. That's good. So the one on the outside here, I'm going to go ahead and change a few things about that. So I'm going to isolate it first of all. And I've got the wrong one, so I'll get the one on the outside this time. Try that again. So I'm isolating that. So what I want to do here is I want to cut a couple of bits around with this. Okay, so I'm going to go for the scissors tool, C, to do that. And I'm going to make a cut here and here. I'm going to select the rest of that wing and delete it. So now I've just got this shape. I'm going to get my pen tool. I'm just going to draw a little bit of a shape up there, like so, something like that. I was hoping for an inference from the other side, but I'm not too fussed. There we go. Join that together. Okay, so that's going to work. Let's come out of that. We'll go for this thing here. So this is going to be coloured in grey, like so. And then I'm just going to nudge that up into place, and then I'm going to squish it the last few steps of the way. Something like that. Works good. I might even squish it a bit more. There we go. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to change the blending of that to multiply, like that, and then just drop the opacity down so it's kind of soft enough to do the job. Okay, so now that has a little bit of dimension to it, just there. I want to go ahead and repeat that offset path again, just here. Penny Doodles, hello, hello. Well, you can always watch it on demand if you missed a bit. Had to eat breakfast. Yeah, you should eat breakfast. Most important meal of the day. It's really important. Okay, so that one, I've got the outside one here, and that's now hovering over my, I'm going to change the colour of it so you can see it. So let's make this one grey as well. It's going to be grey, just like the other one. Okay, and I want to do a few different things here with this. So, first of all, I'm going to select the wing underneath as well. Okay, and then I'm going to get the shape builder. And I'm just going to drop over the top here and just remove that stuff from there. There we go. Right, I technically don't need the top, so if I got hold of the top here, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to select this shape just here. Then I'm going to use the Pathfinder to knock that out of there, and then Command F to drop that back on top, like so. Okay, now this bigger shape, this bigger grey shape and the red shape, they need to go down to the very bottom of the stack like that. Now I've got that, the grey shape, I can get the eyedropper tool and sample that shade just here, this object here. And so now I've got that. Okay, then this piece here, I can eyedropper that. So those two things are together. And it might be a good idea now to do this as a save on here, and we'll just call this plain symbol. There we go, like that. Be a good idea. Okay, so far that's working out just fine. Right, so we've got that doing the jobs it needs to do. We're not done yet though. Okay, so next we need to tackle a few things here. Okay, so first of all is this fuselage part. I'm going to just go ahead and eyedropper that from there. So that's all done as one shape there. Okay. Now that also needs to be knocked out of this shape as well. Okay, so that's something else I will need to tackle a bit later on. In fact, now would probably be a good time. So if I just copy that, select this, and then punch that out of that shape, I can then paste that in back like so. So Command B to drop that down. Because as you're going to see in a little bit, I'm going to want all of the other shapes, these things that are doing jobs like multiply and whatever else. That's why it didn't matter about how I drew this. I'm just going to copy those wings again. In fact, we'll go ahead and get that, and then we'll knock that out of that shape. There we go. And then Command F or Control F to get that together like that. That's getting much closer. In fact, at this particular point, we could probably now select all of the yellow stuff there, okay, and join that all together and send it to the back. And I'll need to also send the wheel group to the back as well. Of course I forgot about cutting those bits out, but fortunately, so I'm going to get this piece here, I'm going to outline the stroke from that. So now I've got those two things. The wings are still on my clipboard, so I can select that and then just punch the wings out of that shape also. Now the only thing I've got to do there, let me just undo that. Let me just make sure that's fully expanded. There we go, expand, goody. Now I'll try that again. So I've got this object here and the wings. If I go for my shape builder, I could do that in one go, like that. There we are, perfect. I should be able to delete that wing there. You notice no difference when it's gone. Here it is, that's the whole assembly just now. Okay, so that's working pretty well. I should really have something on the front just here also, but I'll just paste those wings down as a safety copy just for the minute and just change the color on there so you can see that they're both there. Okay, because I'll come back to that in a bit, because I might need to just carve something else up. So down at the back here, of course, we've got the tail plane. That's going to be another rectangle. So again, from the middle of that object just there, I'm just going to draw a long rectangle like that. Okay, and then just bring those in like that. And then just take that to about there. Just going to copy that. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, and get both of those. Shape builder. Join those things together. There we are. And now I'm going to need to bring back that yellow. Mind you, I can borrow it from the plane. Just over here. There we are. Perfect. And send that. And the wheels to the back. So this is a bit of faff, right? I'll be honest. Right, it is a little bit faffy, but you will see why shortly. Just quick update, save. Right, so that's working out okay. That has some sort of dimension to it. The only thing I would like to add would be something at the top here. Fortunately, that's a rectangle. Right, so I could get another rectangle like that. Eyedropper tool. Eyedropper all of the properties of that one. Of course, if you want to modify that, just hit return and then determine what you want to bring into it. There's lots of stuff about double clicking on tools. You technically don't need to do that. Any tool that you click, so if I tap P, for example, with a pen tool, right, and just hit return, that does nothing. That's one of the ones that's an exception, right? But if I do the selection tool and hit return, then I get the move dialog, like so. Okay, if I go for things that have properties like the lasso tool, actually because that's got its own panel, so that was a bad choice. I've won with bad choices. But if I go for the eyedropper and hit return, do that. If you've got the blend tool and there's a blend, hit return, then you get other options from there. Okay, so with those two things selected, okay, so that's the red of the wings and that shape there. I'm going to go for the shape builder, Shift M, hold down the Alt or Option key and just drag across those two things. And now that's separated out like so. Good, that's working pretty well. Just there, of course I could add more detail down the side, but you will see why this is being done in this way very, very, very shortly. So just down the side here now, oh, I just realised, did I keep my shape? I did. I just need that for a moment. Just to change that around, I forgot about this thing here. So I'm going to select the eyedropper tool, switch that around, the fill and stroke, Shift X to do that. Colour guide tool, and I think I'm going to go for something that is analogous just here. And then I'm going to make this lighter on the top. Of course, that's doing that to the fill. So tap X to bring the stroke to the front. There we go. And now I've got something there that adds a little bit of dimension to that as well. Okay, next then, line tool. So backslash for that. Choose a point just here. Bring that down like so. Something like that. I'm just following loosely the contours of that. I'm going to make that a bit bigger. Something like that is good, I think. About 4 points working pretty well at this size. And then going to change the stroke profile to that. I'm going to make that stroke white, like so. Then I'm going to change the blending mode of that to screen. Okay, drop the opacity down a little bit. In fact, no, do you know what? I'll do it. I could do it as overlay as well, but screen I think is going to work pretty well. Okay, so there we are, and I've dropped the opacity down there to about 25%. Then back up to the top to my anchor point, my registration anchor point just here. Reflect tool, Option key down, click, do that, that's just fine. I've got a stacking order thing going on here, so I need to change this group, bring it to the front, so it's over the top, like that. Now that I've got that, I can draw, I'm just going to draw a set of lines here. Whoops, wrong tool. There we go, we'll try that again. All right, so set of lines just there. So I'm just going to select that. Oh, and it's probably a good idea for me to, in a minute, for me to outline all of these strokes. So I'm just going to get the eyedropper tool and eyedropper that. It hasn't taken the profile on. Oliver, hello, hello, hello. Everyone can relax, you're here now. I'm so glad you're here now. So glad. I'm not going to use that profile, I'm going to use a different one. There we go. I want that to be slightly more abrupt and bring that down to about, I'm going to go with 2 points just here. Then, all right, first of all, I'm going to grab these 2 points and outline them. Okay, so those are done. This one here, I am going to go ahead and Option key down, drag a copy like so, Command D to repeat that transform, Excellent. I can select similar. That'll get me all of those things. Now I'm going to rely on this shape just here, but I'm going to get the reflect tool and I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and click just there. When I rotated the wings, it was by 2 degrees. Let's have a quick look at that. That looks about right to me. So I'm going to hit OK. Then we'll find out. I'm going to nudge these up into place. Ooh, so close, no cigar. But I'll just eyeball it into place, something like that. Pretty good. I think that works. Just there, excellent. Okay, nice. I'll come back to that in just a second. Actually, yeah, I'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to select all of those things again. I'm going to outline them. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to grab just one of them first and pull that down over here. So I'm just going to drag one copy down onto there. So now I'll get all of those. Just deselect that one at the bottom. Outline those and then reflect those over. Now I could do that in a couple of different ways, but I'm going to use my anchor point at the top here. And that, I'm going to hit the up arrow on my keyboard to take that to vertical. Okay, so that's going to do exactly what I want. Flip it over on a vertical axis. Nice plane, thanks very much. Option key down, hit return, got a copy. There we are. Okay, that's pretty good. That's, for now, working very well. So let's go for this one here. And I think I'll just leave that rotation on it. I kind of like it. Let's make that a bit smaller and even more narrow. And then it's just repeating that again just here. So I'm going to grab that, Option key down. I just want a few on there. I don't want it to be dead accurate with all of the different spars and everything like that. So I'm just going to grab all of those. I'm going to outline them. Then I'm going to use the reflect tool because this shape here, I know that to be correct. Just going to use that and reflect that over. That's pretty good. Okay, perfect. We are almost there. The only other thing I think I want to do is just to add something here. So I'm going to get the curvature pen tool. It's going to double click here. And then click here, and then click here. I just want a slight curve to that like so. I'm just going to click and then drag that into place. Ooh. Click and then drag that into place like so, because I don't want to interact with any of the objects underneath it. Shift X to swap that over. Then pop, I think I'll pop that same thing on there. That's going to work lovely. In fact, I might even just grab, oh, I can't grab that appearance just there, just at the moment. We'll go for that. We'll go opacity, we'll go overlay for that, I think, and then just drop down that like so. That's going to work. Okay, zoom out, do a quick save. Right, interestingly enough, we've got these things here. I think they're not symbols yet, so we'll just grab all 4 of those. I'm going to borrow those, okay, and bring them up to here, and then make each one a symbol. So I'm going to grab this one, okay, F8 on my keyboard, and we'll just call this Sim1. Cool. Do this, just going to repeat this for each one. So Sim2. See if you can guess where we're going with this particular sequence. And then this one. Okay. Perfect. So now we've got those things. I'm going to get rid of everything apart from the red disk. Just there. So let's delete. Oh, okay, fine. Let's just grab those and delete them. Brilliant. And I'm going to bring this up onto the wing like so. Now I think, oh no, actually that does appear to be sitting underneath that thing there, but I'm just going to make doubly sure by bringing it up to the top. There, Sim F. That's what I should have done, Sean. You know me so well. I should have just done that, just for giggles. I guess because all of these are symmetrical, it won't hurt me to reflect this across. Mind you, even if it... Right, okay. So let's pretend they're not... In fact, let's make it so that they're not going to be symmetrical. So I'm just going to rock this around... Just going to rock this around a little bit, like so, to follow the sort of angle of the wing. There we go. Something like that. Then I'm going to select that. I'm going to get the Alt Option key down. Right, so I've also just tapped O for the reflect thing. The plane hasn't taken off without you, Oliver. I'm going to hold down the Alt Option key and then flick that over onto the other side. Option key still down, hit return. Yeah, to copy it. Right, so this angle is wrong and I should be able to use reflect just there. Oh, okay, set it back to its original thing, but anyway. It would have been better in that particular case for me to rotate it by the numbers, but there we are. Something like that. That's groovy. Okay, so let me go into the layer stack here and show you what we've got. There's a lot of paths. Okay, but essentially down at the bottom, if I click in the proxy region, just there, you can see we've got the plane. If I turn that off, okay, that's what we're left with. So if I turn the visibility back on, you can see that. Everything else, you've seen me make all of the different groups for that. Okay, so everything I've got there working pretty well. Sim 1, Sim B, Sim 3 in Roman, Sim 100, the last one is in binary. Yeah. Is it though? Is it? Is that not 2? No. No, you're right. Yeah, 4. Okay, cool. Yeah, it is, yeah. Okay, so I can get rid of this plane down here now because I don't need it because we've done our little copy job of that. Don't need the symbols down at the bottom. Okay, so that's all good. Now we've got our planes. Don't need my registration point anymore at the top. Get rid of that. Everything else there is good to go. So I'm going to select all of that and convert that into a symbol. Okay, so we'll call that plane, like so. You know, might as well call it what it is. Yes. Yes, you're right. 0, 1, let's do, yeah. One place. I keep going with a 0-based index, and there isn't. Anyway, I'll have a think about that in a minute. Okay, cool. Right, so plane, right, so dynamic symbol, all important. I don't even, this bit here doesn't even exist for me anymore. You are basically a computer, right? All the stuff underneath it just doesn't exist for me anymore. Apart from 9 slice scaling, that exists. So now this is an instance of that symbol. Okay, so we've got that. So let's get that, and I'm going to add in fact, I'm not even going to turn it around. I'm going to select that like so. Option key down to create another one, and then Command D, and then Command D, so we can have 4 planes. So here's the thing. The reason we went to all of that trouble, yeah, with building that in the way we did, right, like that. So we know that we've got there one solid area of yellow. We've gone to a bit of trouble to do it, right, but we have got that solid area of yellow. Not that that's critical to what we're going to do, but it is a more efficient way for this to work. We've then got things here, right, which give us shadows irrespective of what is underneath them. Mostly, not always, but mostly that should work. So these are dynamic symbols. So if I now go ahead and select my direct selection tool and now click on that yellow. Can you see how that has like a border around it now? Right, it's highlighted like so. You'll also notice, right, that the fill here, okay, has lit up in the interface. Right, so the fill at the front here. I'm going to go ahead now and choose a different color for this plane. So this one is going to be a blue aircraft. Then I'm going to go to the next one and click on that. Yeah, that one's going to be sort of a deep orange aircraft. Not that deep. It's going to be like that. Now it's a mid-orange. And let's go to the last plane here and click on that one. And this one may be, I don't know what, green, red? I don't know. Magenta, yeah. Something like that. Not only that, right, because we have nested a symbol in here, I'm going to select both of those symbol instances, right? Then I'm going to go to the replace option at the top and say replace those with those. Yeah, so now I've got something that's super, super flexible. I'm going to do that with these two as well. Right, so I'm going to replace that with maybe these ones here like so. Okay, and then this one, I'm going to click on these two. Right, and then replace those with those. There you go. So now we've got all of those different options. And if we want another blue plane with any of those, we could build quite a lot of planes with those things. Let's do a save on that. So that's a decent piece of flexible working. I am not done yet, however, though, right? So what I'm going to do here, also spot the thing that's gone a bit wrong here. Can you see that tail plane is yellow on all of them? So how do I fix that? Well, because I should, right? So I'm going to double click on that to go into symbol editing mode. I'm then going to click on this. I'm going to change its color to white. Then I'm going to modify how it blends down with the stuff underneath. So I'm going to go for screen where white is, where black is a neutral, and then just dial that down till it looks about right on there. Groovy. I'm going to make one of the planes purple for you. Right, we're going to make a purple plane right now, Oliver. There we go. We'll do that right here. Yeah. Never let it be said that I'm not responsive to the needs of my audience. There you go. Is that okay? Would you want it a bit darker? And Penny is also in favour of the purple planes. Well, there you go. You've got a purple plane now. Yeah, they're there. Right, I might actually even just change the insignia on that one. There we go. Let's go red star on that one. There we go. Nice. I think that looks cute. So now all of those tail planes are working. Of course, they're on their way to an air show. Purple plane, purple plane. Thank you for all the Fiesta things there. Super good. I only wanted to see you bathing in the purple plane. Brilliant. Okay, curvature pen tool. And let's do some curvature stuff. Here, let's go short stop there. Shift X to swap those things over because that's super like distracting. Good. Let's bring that in a little bit and then just bend these around. I really loved showing all this stuff at Max London last week because it's so good to see. There were a lot of young people there and they really, really got it, which was fantastic. Yeah, it was really, really good to have a young audience that are grabbing hold of this stuff. Yeah, and working with it, because I know that the current belief is that people learn more by videos, so the help systems and everything on adobe.com are all around video to show you how to use a tool. I don't think that's good to hear you're grabbing hold of this stuff. I am finally, Tim. I'm selecting all four of those planes. I'm then going to go for the objects on path tool. Click on that path like so. Ooh, that's kind of interesting that they're all rotated around that way. So let's just go ahead and spin those. around, there we are, something like that. Might even go the other way around. Let's go to 270. There we are. We've got all of those things. Then what I'm going to do is use the widget here. We're just going to close these things up a little bit, like so, something like that, and then just move them along the path. There we go. Goody goody. Now, talking of the path, I'm actually going to select that path, tap X to bring the stroke to the front, hit the slash key to hide that. That way the path's still there. Okay, but there are the planes all flying along nicely like so. The only thing I'd like to do for this particular thing is to add a key line to them. We're just about going to do this in time, I think. Mind you, if I go over the hour, more points. So here's the thing, right? I'm going to group these together, right? So at the moment they are an objects on path object, right? It's an object type within Illustrator. Command G to group them. Yeah. Now it's not showing that as a group, curiously enough. It's still showing them as an object on path. If I go to the appearance panel, that should also be showing them as a group. Let's try that again one more time. Okay, fine. I'm not worried. I'm going to add a new fill, so command slash to do that, control slash. Right, this is going to look terrible for a minute, so I'm just taking that down to the bottom. Then I'm going to go to the fill here, target it, and go to path, offset path, just to add a little bit of an offset on there. I'm also going to make those round. Oh, that's an interesting effect from those things there. And so now that we've got a nice key line on them, yeah. But of course, so is our path. So how do we deal with the path? Well, the way to deal with that is with a pathfinder, but not the pathfinders that you use. I double checked today on the Adobe website to see if that had been updated. There used to be information on there about the pathfinder effects. There isn't any. Just says that they're there and you can choose one. Helpful. Really, really helpful. I'm going to go to effects just here. I'm going to go to pathfinders, right? So this isn't in the panel and these things behave differently. If I choose add, this isn't going to do anything, by the way. But if I choose add, now there's a pathfinder working on there. If I choose something like minus front, so let's go and change that. Sorry, minus back. We'll change that and hit OK. Actually, that's not doing that much on there. But what we actually want here is to go to divide, like so. And so now all of our planes have a nice key line on them. They are all flexible. So if I need to get in there and change anything with the objects on a path, like move them along, they will respond to that. If I need to change their relationship to the path, so at the moment they're on their center, right? If I chose one of these things, then that's now on the bottom of them. If I chose something here, that would be on the left. So I've got all of those different options there to play with, and the key line is in effect, and everything there. If we'd said, right, okay, we don't need a magenta plane, we can go ahead and target that and very quickly change that color to a nice green plane, and there you go. But all of the stuff there that's helping us to do that and adding those effects, while it took a little while to build it, we've now got something that's really flexible. Ta-da! That's it, we're done. Thank you so much for joining. Really good to see you here. Next week no stream because it's off. I'll be in Barcelona with my Adobe fam over there. So hope you enjoyed this. Plenty to take away. If you didn't manage to watch live, Tuesdays generally at 3 o'clock. Not always because I work in other sites. But there we go. 3 good planes and 1 amazing one. The purple one. I will see you soon, Circuit Board. Indeed I will. Okay, there we go. Anyway, a couple of things there for you to pick up. Hope you enjoyed it.